So once that we have identified and defined all the impacts, now we will start in the design of the project. Okay, this will be the design part of the project where we are writing our project. So we have already know which are the objectives for our projects, which are we going to affect, where will be located. We know all these things in the identification process. We will know who will we affect and who will we have to take in account. And now we are going to write it, right? So this will be the next part. So in this part of the designing of the project, we need to know the methodology and we need to describe the methodology to be followed, which will be the activities, how the actions will be carried out in order to achieve the expected results, our objectives, right? Which will be the timing of the actions with a timetable, because this also will allow us to foresee in which, for example, in which season will happen our project and which season will happen our event or our activities, that it can be planned in advance to reduce the negative impact of our project, for example. The timing of the action, available resources, the material, the human, and the financial resources, the internal organization, the intervention team that is going to carry out the project. We need to know which people will do it, and we need to educate them, and we need to tell them, and we need to inform them about all the decisions that we have been seeing in the previous step of identification. So all the team that will take part in the intervention, we need to be aware of why all the decisions have been taken. Why are we designing like this the project? Also, this is the point where we already in the previous part, we have identified the other entities or institutions to create the networks. So this is the time to coordinate with the other entities or institutions. And then we need to also design the mechanism for monitoring and evaluate our project. So what we are saying about the internal organization of the intervention team that is going to carry out the project is the human resources. So in this part of the project design, when we analyze which staff we are going to appoint in the project for the implementation of the project, and it is important to consider again whether we have someone specifically for the monitoring of the project. Depending on the magnitude of the impact of the project that we are planning, we will also have to do it accordingly the number of the staff. If it is necessary to hire someone specifically to address the impact generated, or it may be sufficient to expand the environmental training of the staff that will implement the project. If training courses are to be carried out, it will be necessary to indicate them at this point. Once that the project has been designed, it is necessary to reflect if the environmental impact evaluation has been properly incorporated in each of the phases of the development of the planning documents, and to incorporate the culture of mainstreaming in our daily work. Here, we can explain the hierarchy of the mitigation. So the steps for when we have identified an impact, a negative impact, it will be the first step will be to avoid it. So we have to try to avoid this negative impact. If we cannot avoid it, we will have to minimize it. So reducing the duration, intensity, and the significance of the impact. If we cannot minimize them, we will have to rehabilitation, restoration. It means repairing environmental degradation or damage. And then we can biodiversity offsetting our impact, like offsetting our carbon emissions, for example, that will be compensating for residual impact. If you want again to know more about this, you can check this link that will be in the work book that we have in the website. So now we are going to see about what are the indicators. So here I like to highlight a sentence that I think is very, very illustrative. It is said, what is not defined cannot be measured. What is not measured cannot be managed. What is not managed cannot be improved. and what is not improved, it always degrades. It is supposed to be from William Thomson Kelvin, but it's not real. We don't really know the source. So the indicators, we can define the environmental indicators like they are useful tools for analysis and dissemination of the best available information. And they help to describe complex phenomena and synthesizing a large amount of data that would otherwise be very difficult to make available to the public. Indicators also play a role in supporting decision making by public authorities and provide transparency in the environmental information to the general public. In our projects, we will need to define the baseline. Where are we starting in our project? And then we will have to measure, and then we will have to compare. So this is what they are useful for, to know exactly the impact that you have had. One of the indicators that you probably most known that everyone now is talking to, and we will talk about this later, it is the carbon footprint. It's a kind of indicator because it gives you a number, and if you can compare this number with another number, with one country with another country, one food with another food, one mean of transport with another one. So that's why the indicators are so important. Here also, you have many lists of environmental indication, and for more information, you can check on this line and this link that it will explain better.
So let's start with giving some examples of indicators. We will start dividing them in 4 categories: soil indicators, water indicators, biodiversity indicators, and atmosphere indicators. In the soil indicators, here we have some examples. First one will be loss of vegetation cover, that it can be anything that is related with removing vegetation from the soil. For example, if we are in a camp and we need to clear the grass or the bushes that we have there, so this will be a loss of vegetation cover. This will be a negative impact that we need to do to the land, and then we need to indicate this. It can be indicated in a percentage, like if 20% of the vegetation cover. Imagine that the camp is around 500 square meters, and then we are affecting maybe 20% of the vegetation cover when we have to do the latrines, or when we have to do the camp part, or any kind of impact that we have to do to the land. Also, for example, when we are constructing a trail or constructing a road, there is a vegetation loss of vegetation cover that is there, and this will be indicated. Another one will be soil microbiological imbalance. This means every time that you put any kind of chemical to the soil, for example, if we apply pesticide, if we have an urban orchid, for example, or a normal orchid, and then we apply the pesticide, this will lead to an imbalance in the microbiology of the soil. So this is another indicator. Degradation of the structure, it can be anything that is related with digging, make a trench or dig. Sometimes in agricultural projects, you can see when they need to aerate all the surface in order to plant later. So this is a degradation of the structure. Loss of organic matter and minerals. This also is related with anything that you need in the first stage, in the first extract of the soil. That is where the organic matter is there. So anything that you need to remove from there, it will mean a loss of organic matter and minerals. Compactation is when we are doing compacting the soil. So when you are doing a road again, and when you are doing a path, you need to compact the soil. So this is also a negative impact that you need to indicate it. The acidity imbalance can be another indicator, same as microbiological imbalance, when we are adding or giving some kind of chemical, or maybe if we are throw into a river some of the chemicals or some of the pollutants, it also can carry acidity imbalance. Decrease of the moisture content. This also is another soil indicator that means that we are getting dry the soil, right? So sometimes it is when we are doing a well and you are removing water from the soil, you are leading to a decrease in the moisture content. That is also negative impact for the soil. Salinization is another impact that can be when we are working very close to the sea and then we are doing some kind of intrusion. So this can lead to salinization. Erosion of the soil, it can mean anything that we are doing related with the, as we said before, removing vegetation or if we are removing vegetation especially from the slopes of a mountain, it will lead to erosion, so it needs to be also indicated there. Any kind of contamination, it can be physical contamination that we are throwing plastic, that after an event, for example, if we are giving a concert and we are contaminating somehow, not recycling all the garbage or not taking all the garbage, it can get there, so it's very easy, this indicator. The stabilization of a slope is the same as erosion. When we are removing or when we are doing something in the mountains on the slopes, if we are doing this concert, for example, or we are taking advantage of the slope for the people to can see, but this will lead also to the stabilization of the slope, erosion and compactation of the soil that it need to be indicated in this. So let's pass now to the next one, that is the water indicator. Here again, we are going to give some examples of water indicators. For example, decreased flows, it means when we need to use the water from a river, for example, or from a stream, and then we have to deviate this water, it will lead to a decrease in the flow of the river, and we need to foresee this impact. If we need, for example, again, in the camp that we are doing, we are camping, we need to take the water from the river, we will need to indicate this at the beginning of the project, where we are thinking to, and then at the end. Water wastage is when we are doing any kind of activity, we will probably having a bit of water wastage. So we need to see where is this water coming from. So depending on which this water is coming from, the impact will be higher or lower. Affecting groundwater and surface water is if we are doing any kind of leaking, any kind of throwing of any kind of adding chemical or adding in a latrine, for example, that we are adding this composter material. This is also affecting the groundwater and the surface water. When we have again like a urban orchard, if we are putting some fertilizer, it can also affect the groundwater and the surface water dynamics. The alteration of physical and chemical properties can be another indicator, and the activities that we have mentioned before can lead for this as well. The same as water pollution and eutrophication, it means the lack of oxygen in the water. That this is something that is happening now, for example, in the coast of Spain, due to the big amount of fertilizers that the agriculture people are using in their lands, is leading that this exceed of the exceed of this material that it cannot be absorbed for the land will go to the water, and then all this is causing that there are much more algae, and with the algae is removing the oxygen, and it can lead to the death of the fish that are living there. So this is it has become a very critical point, for example, in Spain. Salinization of the water, it can also be the same as we said with the soil, when we are working close to the seawater, or where we are working with doing a well. We need to escape a well and then to take the water from there. Maybe it's leading to a salinization of the water in the aquifer that we are taking the water from. Transport of solid, it's also any kind of solid that we are throwing. If we are again, I'm putting the same example because I think they are good examples of some activities that we are doing. If we are doing a concert in the open air and then we don't take care of the waste management, it can lead that after the rain it can go to the water, and at the end it will end up in the ocean. Sedimentation of the water bodies is when we are removing, for example, some vegetation from the shore of the river. It's not taking all the sand that is there, and when this sand is going to the river, it can lead to sedimentation of the water bodies. So now we are going to go to the next one, that will be biodiversity indicators. Usually these biodiversity indicators are cumulative effects. Normally it's not that you are doing something specifically for the biodiversity, but it can affect to the biodiversity. Again, if the affectation of faunal communities, imagine if we are in this concert in the open air and we are affecting all the birds that are there, but this impact will be temporal, won't be permanent, won't be very, very high, but it has an affectation, and we have to check it, and we have to design, and we have to identify, and we have to measure it, right? Affectation of the vegetation cover, as we said before, any kind of affectation of the vegetation cover also will lead to a biodiversity loss. Ecological imbalance, we said before, any kind of chemical that we are putting into the plants, into the soil, into the atmosphere, it will lead to an ecological imbalance. And decrease of natural protected area, I don't think with any of our projects will do it, but this is another kind of indicator that can be there. Any landscape modification. Again, I don't think that we are doing landscape modification in the long term. In the short term, maybe we are doing when we are putting these tents, or when we are doing any kind of activity at the open air, we are kind of modification the landscape, but it can be just a punctual impact and needn't be to be so high. But it also needs to be taken into account. The next one will be the atmosphere indicators. So this is related with anything that is activity that is related with the fires, for example, or again with the noise. If we are doing fire trucks for the end of an activity that we want to celebrate, this also will have an impact, and we need to describe it. The air pollution, if we are having any kind of activity that is creating a smoke, maybe in this concert that we are talking, we are having this smoke, and then this is also air pollution, and we really need to take care of it, or at least we need to indicate it. And then, as we said before, we have to see if we can avoid it, or if we really think that is worth it. So we need to just measure and then see how can we mitigate it. The same with the odors is another atmosphere impact that can have, that depending on the activity that we are doing, it can create some odors, and then smells, bad smells. It's also, we need to indicate it. So this is the examples that we have give about soil, water, biodiversity and atmosphere, but you will think to this is some examples. You have to think on your own, right? Maybe there are some that we didn't realize here. Atmosphere indicators, for example, also can be if we are going by car to another place, and then we are contaminating the atmosphere if the car is not electric car. So here we have to see, okay, maybe we can avoid this if we are using electric car, renting electric cars or another kind of electric car, or maybe going by bike or by foot if it is possible. So this, when we are designing the project, is when we need to, once that we have identified the impact we will have, we will need to indicate if we cannot avoid the impact, the indicators have the baselines before starting the project, creating our baseline about what are the numbers, and then after that we have created our baseline, we will have to measure them, to measure all the impact, all the indicators that we have created, and we will see later in the identification and in the evaluation, we will see what has been the real impact of our projects.